What would you do if you reach financial freedom at the age of 31? Today, I have a new story to share with you. This is my friend Damien. Together with his few friends, he actually sold away his first startup for 5 to 6 million US dollars. With that amount, he could easily have retired. Instead, he's founded a new company called THEGYMPOD. You may have seen it on the streets, and if you're curious to find a bit more on his journey, continue listening in. Hi guys, welcome in. Today I have Damien.
Hi Josh. Hi everyone. I'm Damien from the Gym Pod.
Damien, many people may not have known your story on what you've built before, and some of them may not have even seen GymPod. But I guess they are all curious about how much money you have made before in your first venture.
So my previous startup is a e-commerce platform, something akin to Shopify, but we built it for Southeast Asian countries. We built it for about 5 years, 6 years before we got acquired by a Philippines telco. It's not a big acquisition. It's about US $5-6 million acquisition. We had three founders back then. So after we got acquired, I had to work for the company for about 3 years to serve out the bond. And then after that, somewhere around there, I was thinking, what's my next steps? What kind of problems I hope to solve and stuff. So then I came across the idea of the gym pod because I was looking to solve a problem for myself in terms of getting a private space to train and stuff. And yeah, so I started gym pod in 2018. Yeah, and then now currently we are, but we have about 50 pods in Singapore. We just started in US as well.
How many
Yeah.
again? 15 or 50?
50.
50 pods. Wow. I know you started only a couple of years back, right? So the growth rate has been astronomical.
So about 4 years back, just before COVID started, the COVID happened. But fortunately, our concept still sticks with people, even especially because of COVID and stuff. People really want the privacy and the safe distancing from people as well. So fortunately, my problem is also what many others face. So that's why we managed to go to 50 pods at the moment.
Well, you guys listening in, Damien and I actually are of same age, 38. So Damien has walked this journey on entrepreneurship, building one business, and right now building a second one. So maybe some of you are even using this facility right now that Damien has built, GymPod. Hey, but Damien, today I want to draw our discussion towards finance because, as I mentioned, everybody's capo, about money and stuff. Let me leave the first question. Do you feel it's more stressful on finances as an employee or being the entrepreneur? Which is more stressful?
I was also employed before. I worked at Mapletree Investments for a few years before I gone down the startup route. I would say there's bigger variances for entrepreneur, obviously, because there are up and down swings in the businesses. And in terms of you look at cash flow and all these things, you're not just worried about your own income because the business also affects the income of your employees. So I think the stress is on your own finances and also for them. Of course, for yourself, you don't get a fixed pay at least at the beginning. For example, my first startup, and even for the gym pod, the first 2 years, I don't draw any salary at all.
Or just a token amount, just
like a
expenses.
small allowance. I think like $500, $600.
Then how to pay mortgage, how to raise family in that sense.
Okay, yeah. So at that time, unfortunately, I'm younger, right, much younger. So I don't have a family to raise. I'm still staying at my mom's place. But I think the stressful part also, I think it relates back to also your lifestyle, right? How much you're spending on these things, whether you're employed or employed. I think it's the same. If for me, fortunately, growing up, I've been living very frugally, so I don't have as much extravagant lifestyle. Even right now, when I'm a bit better off, but
a bit better off sounds very modest. Because just now you mentioned some figures, but so a couple of $1 million, even if you have a fraction of it, it's still going to be a good sizable amount.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. But still, of course, I think ultimately comes to your lifestyle, right? If you are earning a lot and you are spending like 80% or 90% of a paycheck, whether you're entrepreneur or not, you'll still feel the stress. Yeah, but I think your question is related to entrepreneurs. Definitely, I think I would say to a large extent, yes, but your appetite for risk has to be bigger in a sense, and you have to think about how to mitigate risk all the time. Yeah.
So what about during COVID period? Because that was when GymPod already started, right? That phase definitely is not the time to expand rapidly. I don't know.
So fortunately for our model, right, because we are unmanned gym pod, so the model of it is we keep the operating cost pretty low in terms of manpower. We're very lean team. And fortunately at that time we don't have 50 locations yet. We have like maybe 6, something like that. it was still okay. There's only like four of us back then, and then all of us were like, let's get through it together. We can survive together, and yeah, I think it was okay for us. Of course, it was worrying like how long it's going to be because there's no uncertainty at the time. Now we look back, we know okay, 3-4 months is doable, but back then, it keeps extending. When every time it has extension, then you lose a few nights of sleep. As an
So
entrepreneur,
that
obviously.
period, you mentioned you didn't draw any pay. You had staff already, right? Or staff, they should be sheltered away from such
Yes, as
abrupt.
much as possible. I mean, I was upfront with them now, of course, like, there's this situation, but right now, in the next couple of months, looking at finances, I can still pay you, right? Then we will need to review again in the next 2 months. But I also haven't said that because of that, let's think of something to do in the meantime, right? Let's try to do, all the online workouts, try different things or innovate our product, so when it's ready, we can ready to roll out. That's something that I'm very transparent with.
Because I always think many of us, when we see stories on internet and stuff, we kind of gravitate towards the most catchy headlines about, oh, this entrepreneur made a lot of money. And we kind of don't understand, that variance which you mentioned.
Yeah.
If there's a crisis, if there's a recession, if there's a pandemic,
yeah.
and then the biggest hit is always on the entrepreneur. So the variance part is indeed very stressful.
Yeah, I think there's a very strong survivorship bias, right? You only read about the success stories, right? What about the 99% of entrepreneurs or businesses that, got affected and didn't make it to the headlines?
And then what about, family pressure? I imagine if business is tough, then would there be, family pressure from spouse?
Okay, just to relate back to the first question, very, very stressful. Also depends on your stage of life. If you are young, 25, single man, right? Maybe less stressful, right? Like most your business fail and then okay, go and get a job again. Right? You have no mortgage to pay. Right? 38, you have kids and stuff. Definitely the stress is there, right? You can't afford to lose everything. But in terms of family support, fortunately for me, my wife is supportive. I mean, she knows what I'm doing, when she met me and stuff. I think the pressure more for myself, actually. Yeah, not so much from the family. Yeah.
Okay, so your wife can bring in an additional employment income, or is she with the business also?
She's an employee. Yeah.
Okay.
Although she's very interested in doing her own thing, so she's doing like some side hustles by herself, kind of thing. Yeah.
Because we talk about side hustles a lot on this channel. To grow your own financial independence, you want control, then it's either you start a business or you have side hustles that you can generate some income. But also imagine with one employed income, at least, some of the basic expenses can be paid, right?
I mean, that's a thought. Of course, I don't start out thinking like that. And basically, since my second startup, right, I definitely mitigate the risk and I keep aside some capital that's, in rainy days, I can still draw upon on rather than relying on just my wife's income. That's like the worst case scenario.
I'm very curious. When you sold away your first startup, why didn't you contemplate early retirement? Because that's a very trending topic, right? You've made that sum. If you invest it very conservatively and be super frugal, maybe you could even retire early. But what's your thought?
I was still pretty young back then. I did put the money into investments, but I think there's still a long. My life is still a long way to go. I'm not the kind that wants to go and relax by the beach like every day, and then I think it's going to be boring. And one thing is, I started doing business or entrepreneurship not because purely for the money, but it's because I like it. I like to create things like big products, solve problems for people. That's where, and then I had this problem myself, right? Then I was very frustrated not being able to find a space for me to train in comfort and stuff. So I decided to do it myself. To be honest, when I started, I didn't really fully think that this is going to grow into like, how many ports or many countries and stuff. I just wanted to try out. I don't know whether it works or not. I don't know whether there are other people that actually like this product. But I thought, okay, I calculated how much I need to spend to do this. At worst case, if it doesn't work, I can sell it off the container or whatever, and I can pay back some part of my principal. And the worst thing to happen, right, is that worst case scenario, if it doesn't work in 6 months, I have a private gym to myself for 6 months. Not too bad, I can work. Right,
so
that's
what's the thought process? You have this amount of payout capital, then you set aside some as buffer, then this amount of startup capital for GYMPOD.
Yeah, so pretty much first time you get payout, you're so worried about, you heard stories that people spending all their money frivolously and stuff.
Windfall, then
so I'm worried about that in the sense, although I don't think I will do that, but just to prevent that, I quickly set aside one money for kind of like later stage kind of retirement, right? So that if I lose all the rest of the money now, I still have something for like, later life kind of thing, like 50s, 60s maybe. And then a certain amount that I leave behind that, okay, I think I may do start another startup. I may, or I might do some investments or into investments and stuff. So I just leave some for, to play around with, which now have gone to GymPod.
Hey, so this leads to our second question. Is it
Yeah.
easier to get to financial freedom now that you walked this journey before? You could have found a good job. Do you think you have accumulated more wealth if you've done a startup or gone through that route of employment? What's your gut feeling on things?
Okay, I majored actually in finance, so I could become a banker and stuff. For me, I'm in the fortunate percentage of the entrepreneurs, right? So I think I managed to reach that a little bit faster than being an employed route. But I wouldn't say it's easier because, like I said earlier, the risk is different, right? So you always look at the risk and reward. That means the reward payoff is much higher, but the risk is also very high. It could end up with zero or with a lot. Being an employment, you kind of slow and steady. But employee, like I said just now, right? Actually, there are also ways to reach that. Like you still building side hustles, investing your money smartly and stuff, right? You can also get there. It may take a bit longer, maybe, but I don't think it's necessarily more difficult because the terrain there is different, right?
Yeah, indeed, I also agree it's a slow and steady path that seems a bit more predictable. But getting there, the pace is going to be way different.
Entrepreneurship doesn't mean that you can get there immediately in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years. Sometimes you keep failing and failing and failing, right? And these stories nobody heard of because it's not published, but I believe there are plenty of such cases out there. I would say you go to entrepreneurship not because of the aim of financial freedom. Of course, that is a good motivation, but really because you're really passionate and interested about the thing you're going to build or going to do. Otherwise, the journey can be quite tough. Yeah.
So if I were to guess, for example, in future, GymPod gets acquired or something like that, you probably start something new. What's your inclination to things? Because you're going to get another payout and
there are days
retirement comes in again.
There are days that I tell my wife, right, that just remind me not to do another startup again because of the stress and stuff. But I can't say for sure, but I to a certain extent I think yes, likely I'll probably do something. But it's like you've gone through this kind of, it's like you've gone through NS 2 times. Like you don't know whether you want to go through NS again kind of thing.
Because some of them they choose to become VC and stuff. They start investing, right? Then you don't take on that risk too much yourself. You don't have the operational stress.
To me, if I'm looking at from a risk reward point of view, being an investor seems like the best way to go about doing to get your financial freedom. If you're not, counting aside all the passion from products and all these things and your interest, but just purely for financial freedom, I would think from risk reward point of view, being an investor will be the smartest way.
Triggers me to think of this. If instead you were an employee all the while and there's no chance to be a VC and want to get involved in a business. Now at this phase, you want to start entrepreneurship. Do you think it's too difficult now that you have kids, you have mortgage?
In terms of like opportunity cost and risk is higher, but I think there are advantages as a after your work for so many years, because you probably have better experience. In probably your style is going to be something related to what you have worked with, right? Or your experience that built up. That's likely the case. So you probably have built experience, you build expertise in that domain. You probably have built network as well, people in that industry. You probably have more access to capital, or you may have built your own capital, right? Compared to someone who's like a fresh grad. There are many successful cases, right, for people who start out after 40 and stuff. I don't think it is harder. It's just that maybe that step to take out that first step, like let's quit my job and do it. That one will be harder compared to when I was 25, 26, I say I need to quit my job. Maybe when you have a family, you can think about going for 2 weeks or 2 months. But having said that,
sounds like you need to set that capital aside first. Make sure that
I
part
think
can be taken away. Don't have that stress of bills.
Correct. But I think there are always ways that you can always try out a little bit of your concept of your ideas before you actually quit your day job. It's kind of side hustle, or you can do little experiments, right, to test out the demand before you quit your day job. I think you should have a certain amount of confidence. Of course, you don't know for sure before you do anything too risky. I think entrepreneurship is not about taking risks, it's really about managing your risk.
That's something that most who are not in that journey don't quite understand. They always think that entrepreneurship is big risk, big reward. Then, if you can hit it, then you get to retirement, or then you kind of chill on the beach. I guess your story is a great example. Once you've achieved something, you're still looking for your identity. You're still looking to build something that you're excited about, that keeps you happy every day. I think it's something in retirement that everybody should hear about a bit more.
In a way, you can be retired and then you still you probably will have hobbies and stuff, right? So maybe like building companies is a little bit like a hobby kind of thing, maybe a bit of a very stressful one.
Maybe rearing grandchildren is easier like that. But anyway, I'll just give a quick shout out to GymPod. You guys, when you're listening in, do check out. I think it's a fantastic service. So happy to see you guys grow so quickly in Singapore and overseas also.
Thanks, Josh. I'm so happy to see your videos growing. It's just the first few that I saw.
So you guys, any questions, leave in the comment sections. Damien and I, we can pick it up, especially if you're keen on entrepreneurship, or especially you're thinking, when someone has a big capital, why don't they want to slow down? We can share our 2 cents worth in the comment sections. So that we'll sign off from this quick discussion. As always, smash the like button, and we'll see you next one.